Good morning. Welcome to the final day of 8th grade speeches. Congratulations to all my classmates. We did it. Thank you to all our guests for joining us. Before we get started, please join me in prayer. Bow your heads. Dear Lord, thank you for everyone gathered here now. We are blessed that you know each of us by name and are always by our sides. Fill our hearts with your presence and please be with today's speakers. Give them confidence, reassurance, and peace. Amen. Please welcome today's first speaker, Vanessa Edmonds, who is speaking on astrology.
Astrology is a type of divination or fortune-telling that predicts human events and earthly affairs based on the placement of the sun, moon, stars, and various planets. Although the study of astrology is ancient, people still believe in it and it is still being studied and practiced even now. Astrology has its origins back in Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, and China. The oldest records of astrology go back to the 2nd millennium BC, the Old Babylonian period. Astrologers analyze each planet and its movements, assigning them a god, goddess, and social features specific to that planet. Back onto the note of divination, this practice was very heavy in Mesopotamia and was an important aspect in their lives. They used it as a way to communicate with their gods, who they believed created the fates of humans and controlled divine and natural events. When the period progressed, eventually astronomers created ziggurat towers to better see the stars and study them. Ziggurat towers are usually 7-story high buildings built inside of Mesopotamia. A good example of a ziggurat tower is the Chogo Temple in the Khuzestan province in Iran, which was built by the Elamites. It is one of the few ziggurat towers outside of Mesopotamia. Around 1000 BC, this information was passed on to the Greeks. They classified 48 constellations. The Greeks typically used numbers and geometry to the placement of the stars, rather than Babylonians who used a mix of numbers and grid notes. They used a mix of both, though. This would progress them even further into astronomy than the Mesopotamians and Sumerians. They used Babylonian, Egyptian, and Persian knowledge and combined it with their Greek culture. The development of this information led to significant astronomical discoveries. At the British Museum, located in London, preserved stones, gems, and seals showed the original representation of the zodiac. The bull, the tortoise, the figure with wings, the scorpion, the archer, and the goldfish. The Greek zodiac signs, however, are named after the various gods and goddesses, but there are some that are named after animals, objects, and occupations, such as Libra, which means scales, Sagittarius, which means archer, and Aquarius, which means water bearer. Their names are derived from the Greek myth that they come from. All zodiac signs have some sort of story which tells its origins, at least in Greek mythology. Typically, the animal or god, goddess plays some role in the story. For example, the story of Aries follows Phrixus and Helle, who children of Athamas, the Phoenician king, and Nephele, the goddess of the clouds. Athamas fell in love with a woman named Ino, and Nephele left, causing the drought. Ino tried to sacrifice Phrixus and Helle to try and stop the drought, but Nephele ended this by sending a winged ram with golden wool to save them. Zeus took the ram and placed it in the sky in his honor, creating the ram-shaped constellation for Aries. As astrology was introduced to the Greeks by the Mesopotamians, the Greeks influenced the Romans to later on start studying astrology. However, Emperor Caesar Augustus, later on Octavian, tried to put a ban on horoscopes and restrict astrologers from going into Rome. This was because horoscopes and astrology could be used to predict the emperor's death. Astrology remained a huge part of Rome until the collapse of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century AD. After the fall of the empire, astrology eventually died out, except in Eastern Rome, much to the dismay of the church. Visits from Arabian book collectors and writers in the 8th and 9th century were interested in a little astrology left in Eastern Rome. They began writing books about it, and in the 10th century, books were being translated. By the year 1000, astrology started making a comeback. Astrologers around the world began looking for books on astrology and making copies and excerpts of them. Once these books were being distributed, more and more people became interested in astrology. Eventually, by the 14th century, it made a full comeback. The Tetrabiblos, also called the Quadripartite in Latin, written by Ptolemy, is a good example of this. While it was written in the 2nd century AD, it was and still is an extremely popular book on astrology and the philosophy behind it. Astrology in the 14th century, which was the beginning of the Middle Ages, was mainly medicine-based. Doctors would diagnose illnesses based on the placement of the constellations and planets and would give astrological-based treatments to cure the sickness that they had. They also believed that certain planets and zodiac signs had rule over specific parts of the body. Based on the order of the zodiac signs, the sign would have an influence on a body part and rule over it. For example, since Aries is the first zodiac sign, it would influence diseases or pain in the head, face, eyes, and brain. Since Pisces is last, it would influence the feet, toes, lymphatic system, and adipose tissues. In order to heal sicknesses with herbs, they had to be collected during the time the associated plants were visible. So if somebody was poisoned, the herbs needed to be collected when would have to be gathered when starting was visible. If they were collected at any other time, they were considered to be ineffective. Bloodletting, a popular medicinal procedure in the Middle Ages, was typically done when the moon was under a specific constellation. Bloodletting is when doctors would take blood from certain parts of the body to get rid of a disease. However, it was also done for therapeutic reasons. This practice technically ended in the late 19th century, but some people still do it today. After the Middle Ages, there was the early modern period. However, astrology wasn't as controversial or as talked about as it was when it first went public. Back then, the practice of astrology and astronomy went hand in hand and were essentially the same thing. Today, however, there are clear differences between these two. Astrology is a pseudoscience. As said by Oxford's Dictionary, pseudoscience is a collection of beliefs or practices mistakenly regarded as being based on scientific method. Your zodiac sign or astrological placement has no influence on your personality or on medicine. Astronomy, however, is a study of the galaxies, planets, stars, and basically everything else in Earth's atmosphere. Astronomers do not study their placements or how they affect the events of Earth. I hope that my walkthrough of astrology's origins and history has taught you something new about it and has sparked a newfound interest in the study of astrology, astronomy, and the zodiac. Thank you. Please welcome Kids from Frosty who will be speaking on the Battle of Hamburg Hill.
Hamburger Hill is a very steep hill that's very hard to walk up and was raised in Mason University. The Battle of Hamburger Hill was a 10-day battle during the Vietnam War. In the place of the battle was the A Shaw Valley in southern Vietnam, near Laos, where the day of the battle was raged between May 10th and 20th, 1969. Today I will share why the United States Border Control Hill, explain their battle plan, and the results of said battle. Though the hill had no real tactical significance, taking the hill was part of Operation Apache Snow, a U.S. military strike in the A Shaw Valley. The purpose of the operation was to kill North Vietnamese infiltration from the cities of Hue and Da Nang. During the fighting, 597 North Vietnamese were killed, and U.S. casualties were 56 killed and 420 injured. The purpose of the movement was not to hold the region, but instead maintain the North Vietnamese uneven, so the conclusion was fashioned to abandon the volcano quickly after the position was around. The North Vietnamese occupied a small landfall entities extents afterwards it was deserted. Official historians of the engagement refer to as Hill 937 after the elevation displayed on U.S. Army maps, but the American soldiers who fought on it named Hamburger Hill, suggesting those who fought on it were dialect hamburger meat, in grim reference to the Battle of Pork Chop in the Korean War. The 101st Airborne Division's 326th Medical Battalion formed an air ambulance platoon known as Eagle Dust Off that was responsible for air medical evacuations of casualties in the area of Hamburger Hill. The most used helicopter was called the UH-1, also known as Huey. These helicopters could not be too heavy while escorting the wounded because of their being ambushed while escorting them. They would need to take off in no time. The wounded were mostly medevac to Japan and surrounding countries. The soldier would throw up a flare on the ground or shoot a flare in the air with a flare gun, so the helicopter knew it was safe to land. A dust-off company with 4 people, 2 pilots, a doctor, and a team chief. The team chief would guide all along route, often over water, and monitor all wireless transmissions and would take over the gunner if the ship were armed. The medic observed the wounded. They would two together, load the wounded together, and the doctor would also execute some necessary healing situations on the way to the hospital, frequently by the way of the crew chief. The crew chief and the doctor would sometimes switch helicopters. The U.S. troops had taken the hill on May 20th. The troops later abandoned the hill on June 5th. The reason why they did this was because the hill itself had no strategic value. But there was only one reason for the capture of the hill from General Zayas. The only significance of the hill was that the fact that North Vietnamese won. The hill itself had no tactical significance. This tells you how the people back home were thinking about this. They were probably thinking, why did my husband have to lose his life for a no-value fight? They were probably thinking, well, President John Kennedy closed his battle was senseless and irresponsible. But not all the soldiers thought this was a meaningless fight. General Zayas said those people were acting as a detachment from the U.S. troops, but this was a tremendous elementary for the U.S. troops. There were mixed emotions about this battle. I would have hated the fact that good men were dying for the country for no reason. But I have to think this was a major turning point of the war and changed our development in it, not have a battle just like this. The results of the battle that a lot of good men were losing their lives for a meaningless fight. General Creighton Abrams, who ran the U.S. Military Assistance Command of Vietnam, was ordered to avoid such battles just like this. Because of Hamburg Hill and other battles like this, U.S. focus was placed on Vietnamization, turning the war over to the government of South Vietnam. The definition of Vietnamization is the U.S. policy of withdrawing its troops and transferring the responsibility and direction of warfare to the government of South Vietnam. This topic is very important because it's about our past and the impact on our future. I have learned a few things about this topic, and those are: don't worry about others' problems, you have to fight smart, and you have to learn from your mistakes. I've enjoyed learning about this topic. This battle was very disturbing, sad, and frustrating. This battle has helped us in the future by knowing we use our troops. Thank you. Please welcome Woodruff Holland, who is speaking on international adoption.
Children all over the world become families and homeless and ultimately left to figure out the world on their own with no guidance from an adult figure. Adoption can be an amazing way to help those children that are put in these negative types of situations. Today, I'm going to be discussing with you international adoption. I hope after this you will know what international adoption is and the process of adopting a child internationally, along with the benefits that come with it. In 2019, there were a total of 2,971 children adopted into American families from orphanages all over the world. The amount has been steadily declining in past years due to problems with the government, conflicts, and recently the coronavirus pandemic. International adoption is the process of adopting a child from countries other than the one you live in. Many people choose this form of adoption because they know to adopt a child internationally because they hope to expand their family in a way that may help save the child's life from maybe living in a place unsuitable for children. Another reason is that people may feel that they are called to adopt a child that may be considered an outcast or even worse things by their community and give them a forever home. Dan from Not Yet Christian Adoption says, maybe that's your calling. Many people speak of adoption as a calling. We might expect then that some families will be uniquely called to adopt from foster care, others will be uniquely called to adopt from another country. People also choose this form of adoption because they know that the child will be taken with them in the future. I cannot handle the thought of loving a child and losing them a year or a week later, says Amy from All God's Children International. The first step in the process of adopting a child is to do your research. Doing research is a very important part of the process, whether you're searching the internet or communicating with parents that have also adopted a child in the past, or even going to support groups to see their input. The second step is to pick the agency that you want to use. There are two different types of agencies, private and public. Before choosing the one you want, really look into the prices and schedule. After you have chosen whether you use a private or public agency, you need to pick the one that fits you best. Some include Not Like Christian Adoptions, All God's Children International, Hopscotch Adoptions, and Whole International. All of these agencies offer adoption through many different countries, including China, Ukraine, Africa, and India. The third step is to complete the application and home circle. The agency will review your application to decide whether you can work with them or not. If they accept you, you'll probably have to pay a registration fee. Then you move on to the home circle. This confirms whether or not you can adopt your child. The fourth step is the finalization of the adoption, which depends on the type of visa your child has, along with the states that fall under, or along with the rules that fall under your state. The actual adoption procedure is just one of many processes required for adopting a child internationally. Finally, you must fulfill the U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Services requirements, and then naturalize your child as a citizen of the United States. This means to confirm their citizenship. Then finally, prepare your home for your new child. There are many benefits that come from adopting a child internationally and any adoption in general. Adopting is very helpful to not only you, but possibly the entire world. That child that may be considered unwanted or an outcast by their home and family could grow up someday and do amazing things. An example of this is Kai Owens, who was adopted from the city in China from the city of Luoyang after being abandoned in the town square, and raised in Colorado by her adoptive parents. However, by the age of 17, she was skiing in the Beijing Olympics this year, taking 10th in the women's moguls. This is crazy. It was one of many things that adoptive kids have done with the opportunity they were given. So just think of what else some of these kids can do that are sitting alone in an orphanage. Adoption also has many other benefits for the family. Adopting can fulfill lifelong dreams of raising a family. Many parents around the world would not be able to have a child without adoption, and that is a great way to fulfill their dream of starting a family. Adopting can open up a way of experiencing new cultures by allowing a child with different traditions into your family. because of the fact that it can open up many opportunities to learn and experience new ways of life. Although there may be moments when it gets hard, in general, having a little companion by your side can also make a really big difference in your life. Our family adopted my little sister Helen on July 26, 2015. July 26, 2015. Life hasn't been the same since. It hasn't always been an easy road due to the needed surgeries and adjustments. But all in all, it has been a true test of God's faithfulness and ultimate plan. My family has grown our faith during the entire process. This long process has been able to show us that our hearts can indeed get bigger, and the Lord always provides in a perfect way. In my opinion, I would say that adoption has been a true test of our faith, and I'm thankful that we were chosen to grow our family. It is super funny to think that Helen hasn't always been a part of our family, because she has been with us for so long that my life would be the same without her. Here's what my family has to say. Adoption has been an amazing journey that has brought us all closer to the Lord, says Will. Adoption has changed our lives forever, says Casey. It has impacted me because I have a little sister now, and it's very different from me, but I love her, says Walter. She is so much fun to play with. She loves when I mess with her, and is probably my favorite sibling, says Walter. To sum everything up, international adoption is the process of adopting a child from countries other than the one you live in. It is very important because of all the good it can do in so many reasons more. The process of adopting a child can be long, tedious, and sometimes overwhelming, but it's always worth it in the long run. And finally, there are many great things that come from adopting a child, internationally and locally. I hope after learning all about international adoption, you may someday be called to adopt a child of your own, and save that child that may be living in a place that is not good for them, and show them that there is nothing holding them back from the world. Thank you. Please welcome Kai Francis, who is speaking on the history of Cody.
Statistics show that 80% of Americans have no clue how coding or internet works. I really enjoy playing video games, and I know many others who really enjoy them as well. Without coding, this pastime wouldn't be available to us. Many people who play games have no clue what it takes to create the games. That's what drew me into coding. I had to know what made computers and games function and work. Why am I the person to teach you about coding? I have taken multiple classes and know the basics in coding and programming. Technology has advanced in the last few years, and the gaming industry has evolved just as fast. That's why I'm here to explain coding and gaming. Lots of things have changed with technology, such as faster speeds, better gaming products, and many more. That's why it's important to learn about technology, to test our and improve our limits of technological limits further, and improve our knowledge of coding and programming. Coding has come a long way since its original creation back in 1883. There have been many coding languages developed over the years. There are up to 9,000 coding languages now, but there are the few that are most commonly used in modern technology. They've gotten simpler over the times, starting with numbers, and going with code made completely of just words. The first coding language was created in 1883 when Ada Lovelace and Charles Babbage created the analytic engine, which was the first computer. It was a primitive mechanical computer, and Lovelace was the first to make a language for the computer. Then around 1949, a new language was invented to make programming easier to tell the computer to command the computer and tell it what to do and how to do it. In 1952, Alec Liddy created AutoCAD, which some programmers consider to be the first completed computer language. In 1958, Alec created the first math-based language for computers, which was a stepping stone in the creation for Java and both C languages, C and C++. In the 1970s, Nicholas Wirt developed the language known as Pascal. This language was easy to learn and was the main language used for Apple in their early software development, back in 1976. In 1972, Dennis Ritchie developed the coding language known as C. It was the first known high-level programming language. It means that it was closer to human language, such as just words, unless robotic instead of just using numbers. Then in 1983, Barnes Strauser created the language of C++, which is a more upgraded version of the C language that Dennis created. This is one of the most used languages in the world. Last but not least, in 1995, James Gosling developed the coding language known as Java. Originally, it was intended to be used for handheld devices, but now it's spread with many household items such as computers, microwaves, refrigerators, even washing machines, and many more. Java is one of the most used languages, following a close third behind C and C++. There have been many advancements in technology since programming became easy. Just to start off with, the first computers ran off of code made entirely out of numbers. But since then, we've advanced a lot with the development of new coding languages, such as in 1958, when Algol created the first algorithmic language, which is a stepping stone in the direction of the production of the first coding languages. Then, of course, the development of the language C, which was the first ever known high-level programming language, which then led to largely creating this language, which then led to the production of language C++, made in 1993. It is the most used coding language in the world. Then you have the Java language made in 1995, made by James Gosling, which was originally made for the development of phones and handheld devices, but as it aged, it developed and led to the spread of code being used in many household items. There have been over 9,000 different coding languages developed to this day. The main languages used for websites and games are C, C++, Swift, Python, and Java, and many more. There are many advancements in our video game developments too, like if you compare Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 versus Call of Duty Vanguard. There is a big difference in terms of graphics, sounds, effects, and many more, which cannot be done without coding advancements. Graphics in video games have gotten better over the years. Nowadays, they've gotten good, so you have to take a close look to see if it's a real actor or a coded character. The advancement of programming and coding also comes with the advancement of video games and consoles. The multiplayer in gaming has also improved, such as on arcade machines such as Pac-Man. Two people would take turns playing till you got a higher score without dying or being eaten. Today, we have consoles in our homes that we can play with each other right through the screen, instead of taking turns or having to go to an arcade. Now you can just play with each other. All you have to do is choose a game. With code, you can play anything on the internet as possible. Whether that be gaming, browsing the web, or coding and programming, all of these actions are possible. Most video game language programmers like to use the common coding languages such as Java, C, or C++ for its simple layout, and it's easy to pick up and learn. Coding in the whole industry of programming has come a long way since its original creation in 1883. It has improved and changed in many different ways. In my opinion, the whole work has changed for the better that benefited the whole entire product of technology, such as better graphics, faster speeds, and a better language to make it easier for new coders. Thank you. Please welcome Roman Beck, who is speaking on the Manhattan Project.
Many people have been praying for nuclear war never to happen ever since the Cuban Missile Crisis. But how did it start? How were nuclear weapons made, and who helped in the invention of the weapon? Nuclear weapons have always seemed like an ominous threat to our lives lurking over our shoulders. I wanted to know why these weapons were invented in the first place, and why something this deadly would still be allowed to be used as a weapon. I spent countless hours looking at reliable sources and answering many questions about nuclear weapons. Today, I will address all of these questions with information gathered from various websites and sources. This information makes me knowledgeable to speak on the subject of nuclear weapons, the history of these weapons, and the precautions taken today to keep these weapons from ruining our planet. If you ask what is the most powerful weapon today, a normal response would be a nuclear weapon or some sort of bomb. How did nuclear weapons get to where they are today? Well, I would say the biggest advancements in nuclear development was made by the Manhattan Project. The Office of Scientific Research and Development formed an engineering district. This research district looked at how the chain reaction works. This chain reaction is what causes the bomb to explode with such force. They also worked to find how to purify uranium, to hopefully use it as part of the catalyst for the initial detonation of the bomb. On December 28, 1942, President Franklin Roosevelt authorized the formation of the Manhattan Project. He wanted to use his findings from the Manhattan Project to basically use nuclear weapons as weapons. When the atom bomb was first created, reaction rippled from around the whole world. Many people were scared of these weapons being used in warfare or in really any other circumstance. Some people who worked on the bomb soon realized that these weapons were not necessary and would cause much greater dangers. The people who started the Manhattan Project were Albert Einstein and Leo Szilard. They had prior relations involving a patent for a refrigerator that they had developed. Einstein wrote a letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt on August 2, 1939, discussing the situation with nuclear weapons that are being made by the Nazis. Then Einstein signed and made the letter because he was a well-known and trusted scientist, and he wanted President Roosevelt to take the letter of concern seriously. Thanks to this effort that the scientist made, the president finally wrote back to the scientist stating that he had created, quote, a committee consisting of civilian and military representatives to study uranium. After the Manhattan Project was created in 1942, the research had begun. After 3 years of work and experimentation, the first nuclear bomb was made. The bomb was tested for the first time in the New Mexico desert and was named the Gadget. The testing of the bomb was named the Trinity test. This testing of the bomb had many things that had to be calculated, and even with some of the smartest people working on the bomb, they still had many questions they couldn't answer. One device that was there was codenamed Jumbo, and was basically a holding device for plutonium. They wanted to preserve the plutonium core because it was rare, and they wanted to use it again in case of failure and explosion. With this new invention, the plutonium was kept safe. They planned to set off the bomb July 16, 1945 at 4 a.m., but they had reports from a meteorologist team that said that it would storm that day, so they scheduled it for sometime between 5 to 6 a.m. At 5:29 a.m., July 16th, the first nuclear weapon was dropped. It released somewhere between 15 and 20 kilotons of force, which was slightly more than what was dropped on Hiroshima. The first and only use of these weapons so far was during World War II on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 2 cities in Japan. These 2 bombs were named the Little Boy and the Fat Man. These atomic bombs are weapons that get their energy from fission reactions. Thermonuclear weapons, or hydrogen bombs, rely on a combination of nuclear fission and nuclear fusion. Nuclear fusion is another type of reaction in which 2 lighter atoms combine to release energy. It is obvious that these weapons can cause a lot of damage, but how much? Thanks to the research from the Radiation Effects Research Foundation, it states that 90,000 to 166,000 people died in Hiroshima, while another 60,000 to 80,000 died in Nagasaki. These deaths include those who died to the force and excruciating heat of the initial detonation of the bomb and of the acute radiation exposure that followed soon after. That means that the minimum number of deaths was estimated to be close to 150,000 people. The Sam Research Foundation found that the people who were exposed to the radiation had a 46% higher chance of getting leukemia. Any other signs of cancer development appeared 10 years after the bombings, which was discovered in 1956 when many registries for tumors were sent in. Many countries realized that these weapons could potentially destroy their own country, other countries, or even the world. With this realization, many people were concerned with the testing of these weapons and voiced their opinion against the testing of nuclear weapons. After the United Nations Atomic Commission found an excessive amount of radiation in wheat and milk, they brought together the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, France, and the Soviet Union to discuss nuclear weapon testing. With this mention, there was worry over inspections to verify underground testing. Many years later, when John F. Kennedy was in office, he was also an advocate for the ban of weapon testing. He thought that maybe it was the first step to nuclear weapon disarmament. Now with the knowledge about everything about nuclear weapons, we can now conduct a proper way to handle these weapons. These weapons were aided by one of the smartest people ever to exist, and they proved to have lethal side effects. Nuclear weapons are a serious threat to our friends, our families, and our lives. We should strive not to be ignorant about such topics because it can one day change our planet. Thank you. Please welcome Will Reed, who is speaking on Liverpool FC.
Liverpool Football Club is an English football or soccer team based in Liverpool, England. I have loved Liverpool FC since I was little. I have been a fan through ups and downs. Someday, my dream is to play for and win a lot of trophies for them. Liverpool FC has had a lot of success over the years, and today I will share their history, highlight their successes, and share a few of my favorite players. Liverpool FC began in 1892. From the start, they have played at a stadium in Anfield, Liverpool, England. John Holding, an English businessman, most known for being Lord Mayor of Liverpool, founded Liverpool FC. Another important person in the formation of the team was manager John McKenna. Most of the team building work was carried out by McKenna, who was a dynamic and personable actor. He was director at Anfield for 30 years, and also served the club as chairman on 2 occasions. Although Holding was the founder of the club, McKenna was the man and brain behind early successes. For much of Liverpool's history, its home colors have been all red, but when the club was founded, its kit or uniform was more like a contemporary Everton FC style. The blue and white colored shirts were used until 1894, when the club adopted the city's color of red. The symbol city of the Liverbird was adopted as the club's badge or crest, as it is sometimes known, in 1901, although it was not incorporated into the kit until 1955. Liverpool continued to wear red shirts and white shorts until 1964, when manager Bill Shankly decided to change to an all-red stripe. Over the years, the team has experimented with different colors and styles, and today they have 3 kits that incorporate the traditional red with white and gray. In 1992, to commemorate the centennial of the club, a new badge was commissioned, including a representation of the Shankly Gates. The Shankly Gates stand outside Liverpool Stadium and are named for former manager Bill Shankly. The next year, twin flames were added either side, symbolic of the Hillsborough Memorial outside Anfield, where an eternal flame burns in memory of those who died in the Hillsborough disaster. The Hillsborough disaster was a fatal human crush during a football match at Hillsborough Stadium in South Yorkshire, England on April 15, 1989. In 2012, Warrior Sports' first Liverpool kit removed the shields and gates, returning the badge to what had adorned Liverpool shirts in the 1970s. The flames were moved to the back hollow of the shirt, surrounding the number 96 for those who died at Hillsborough. Liverpool played their first match on September 1st, 1892, a preseason friendly match against Rotherham Town, which they won 7-1. Liverpool reached its first FA Cup final in 1914, losing 1-0 to Burnley. It won consecutive championships in 1922 and 1923, but did not win another trophy until the 1946-1947 season, since they have won 19 titles. Liverpool's current coach is Jurgen Klopp. Klopp managed and played for and managed several German teams. He is widely regarded as one of the best managers in the world. He led Liverpool to the championship in 2019 and was named FIFA Coach of the Year in 2019 and 2020. Some of my favorite players to play for Liverpool are Steven Gerrard, Felipe Coutinho, and Mohamed Salah. All of these players have something in common. They are smart with the ball, and they are all good goal scorers, and have scored a lot of goals for Liverpool. I wish all of these players could have played at the same time when they were on Liverpool FC, because it would have been fun to watch. As you can see, Liverpool FC is a club with a lot of history, success, and some of my favorite players. Liverpool will go down into history as a club that has changed the football or soccer world. I want Liverpool to win a lot of trophies in the future, and I hope I will play with them in the future. Thank you.
Can we give them another round of applause, please? And I want to congratulate all the eighth graders. I'm proud of every single one of you. Everybody did it. Good job. Students, y'all may go back to class. Parents, guests, you're welcome to come visit. Take pictures if you'd like to. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
job, Kelsey. Hey, Pat, good job.
Make sure you like it. All right. Yes. Did good. Are y'all done? Ready? Yeah.
Are you getting up safe?
Just this shorter class.
It's not easy at all.
I thought it like shaking.
Robin, are you glad to
Authors of published in some journal somewhere.